The screen flickers, a faint hum fills the air, and for a second, you can almost smell the static. It's the 1980s again, an era when the word remote control meant you were lucky, and channel surfing required actual effort. The television wasn't just a device. It was the family hearth. Every evening, people gathered around that glowing box like it was a portal, because, in a way, it was. It transported us to worlds filled with laughter, weird ideas, and characters who felt like friends. It was a simpler time, or at least it seemed that way. The world outside might have been changing fast: politics, economy, culture. But inside those four walls, TV was the safe zone, a place where laughter reigned supreme. Before Netflix algorithms, before endless scrolling, the 1980s gave us something pure, scheduled joy. You waited all week for your favorite comedy night. You didn't just watch, you experienced. From absurd storylines about robots pretending to be kids, to aliens stuck in human homes, to cops who couldn't solve a case to save their lives. The 80s wasn't afraid to be ridiculous, and that's exactly what made it special. It was a time when writers experimented wildly, networks competed fiercely, and audiences were in love with laughter. But somewhere along the way, many of those shows, the odd, the heartfelt, delirios slipped into the cracks of memory. So tonight, we're digging them back up. We're going on a time-travel journey through the forgotten funny bones of television's past. This isn't just nostalgia. It's a reminder that laughter, even when forgotten, never really dies. It just waits patiently, like a dusty VHS tape on the back of the shelf, waiting to be Back in the early 80s, the sitcom formula was simple but golden. Put strange people in stranger situations and let the chaos unfold. It was a playground for absurd ideas. Take Small Wonder, for instance, a show about a robotics engineer who secretly builds a human-looking robot girl and passes her off as his daughter. The humor was as awkward as it was charming. Every episode had that weird mix of heartwarming family lesson and pure sci-fi nonsense. But two kids of the time, Vicky the robot was a dream come true. A mechanical sister who could clean, do homework, and speak in monotone wisdom. Watching it now, you can't help but laugh. Not just at the jokes, but at how sincerely it believed in its own craziness. Then there was Alf, the sarcastic, fur-covered alien from the planet Melmac, who crash-landed in the Tanner family's garage. Elf wasn't just funny. It was iconic. He ate cats, broke furniture, and roasted humans with deadpan humor long before sarcasm became mainstream. But what made Alf special wasn't just the jokes. It was the heart beneath the puppet. Beneath all the wisecracks, it was a story about an outsider trying to fit in. That combination of humor and heart is something modern shows still chase, but rarely capture. Yet as wild as Alf was, it quietly vanished in 1990, leaving behind only reruns and memories of a time when practical puppets ruled TV before CGI ever existed. Of course, not every show in the 1980s was about aliens or robots. Some took everyday chaos and turned it into gold. Perfect Strangers followed the innocent, upbeat immigrant, Balki Bartakamis, and his cynical American cousin Larry. Living together in Chicago, their mismatched personalities gave us some of the best physical comedy of the decade. Balki's optimistic misunderstandings of American culture were pure joy and surprisingly insightful. Through laughter, it reminded people that kindness and confusion often walk hand in hand. And then came the workplace comedies, offices, newsrooms, and courthouses full of chaos. Night Court, for example, was a quirky masterpiece set in a Manhattan courtroom during the graveyard shift. It mixed slapstick humor with genuinely touching moments. The show oddball characters, from the kind-hearted judge to the eccentric public defenders, made every episode feel like a surreal dream about justice and absurdity colliding. Watching it today, you can still sense that unfiltered creativity, a reminder that the best comedies were often built on chaos that somehow worked. Meanwhile, Sledgehammer was what happened when someone decided police dramas needed a dose of total madness. The main character, Inspector Sledgehammer, was a parody of every tough cop from the movies overly macho, trigger-happy, and hilariously self-confident. "Trust me, I know what I'm doing," he'd say right before blowing something up. It mocked the seriousness of action TV in the 80s, while still being one of the most quotable comedies of its time. It was satire before satire became a trend, and yet, like so many others, it disappeared too soon. By the mid-80s, family comedies dominated the airwaves. Every night had a different kind of family to laugh with. Silver Spoons was one of them. A fantasy for every kid watching. A boy living in a mansion with his toy-living, child-at-heart millionaire father. It was every young viewer's dream of endless arcade machines, model trains, and no bedtime. But behind the fun, Silver Spoons also carried small lessons about family, growing up, and the loneliness money couldn't fix. It was charming, silly, and perfectly 1980s. Then came Webster, another child-centered comedy about an adorable orphan adopted by an unlikely couple. The show walked the fine line between heartwarming and goofy, mixing serious issues with humor that could make anyone smile. Like Different Strokes, it blended comedy with compassion, proving that TV in the 1980s had heart behind the laugh track. The 80s didn't just laugh at families, it laughed with them. Who's the boss? Flipped gender roles before it was trendy. Tony Danza as a housekeeper working for a career-driven woman was something TV had antecedent before. Their chemistry carried the show, and its humor came from the tension between old-fashioned values and modern independence. It was light, it was funny, and it asked real questions about what a family could look like. And then there was Mr. Belvedere, the tale of a proper English butler working for a loud, messy American family. The clash of cultures created endless comedy. Every episode had that gentle British sarcasm meeting American absurdity, and somehow it worked beautifully. It was clever in its simplicity. Structure meets chaos, politeness meets reality. What's fascinating about these forgotten comedies is how diverse they were. Not just in stories, but in spirit. Some, like It's Your Move or Just the 10 of Us, tried to capture teenage rebellion. Others, like Gimme a Break, tackled life's tougher moments through humor. Each one reflected a tiny piece of the 1980s. The optimism, the weirdness, the unapologetic laughter. The thingies most people don't forget these shows because they weren't good. They forget them because television moved too fast. New decades bring new obsessions, but in their time, these sitcoms weren't background noise. They were shared moments, the glue that held families together after long days. They were the reason people rushed home before 8 p.m. And even now, if you listen closely, you can still hear their laughter echoing from somewhere deep inside your memory.